watching World News Program with me, Mariam Zian, to the headlines. Israeli airstrikes kill over 45 Palestinians across Gaza in 48 hours, including children and farmers. The World Health Organization describes the situation in the Gaza Strip as catastrophic, with 2 million people suffering from hunger. Also coming up, the far-right fuels public anger across France with mass protests denouncing its policies. And police resort to violence to silence dissent, while lawmakers and political parties intensify their calls for Interior Minister to resign following the killing of Muslim youth Abu Bakr Sisi. Weeks after the army regained control of the capital Khartoum, the RSF shelled the vicinity of the Republican Palace. In El Fasher, several people were killed in renewed shelling of various neighborhoods. The UN reports that over 500 civilians have been killed. Next, after prolonged negotiations, Ukraine and the US signed a minerals agreement. Kiev says the deal marks a turning point in bilateral relations, while Russia claims it forces Ukraine to pay the price for American aid. Hello and welcome back to your nightly news. First, several Palestinians were martyred and others wounded following Israeli occupation forces airstrikes on the areas of Al-Mawasi in Rafah and Beit Lahia in the Gaza Strip. Medical sources in Gaza reported on Wednesday that 9 Palestinians were killed, including 3 farmers, in a drone strike on Al-Mawasi west of Rafah city, and 6 others in a separate airstrike on the town of Beit Lahia in the north of the Strip. Still in the same context, multiple Palestinians were martyred and others injured in Israeli strikes targeting various neighborhoods in Khan Yunis. Palestinian medical sources announced on Thursday the martyrdom of 8 people, including 5 in an Israeli airstrike on a house in the western camp area of Khan Yunis. 1 person was killed by Israeli artillery fire in the town of Huza'a, and another by an Israeli drone strike in the Al-Manara area southeast of the city. A young girl also succumbed to wounds sustained in a previous Israeli strike on Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. "29 Palestinians were martyred and others injured in intense Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip since early Thursday morning. According to a statement by the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza, 29 people were killed in the initial toll, including children and women from the same families, in Israeli strikes that targeted densely populated areas. And the executive director of the World Health Organization Emergencies Programs said on Thursday that the minds and bodies of children in Gaza are being broken following 2 months of aid blockade and renewed strikes. The World Health Organization also declared on Thursday that the situation is catastrophic and that 2 million people are suffering from hunger in the besieged Gaza Strip.
The reality here is that we are breaking the bodies and the minds of the children of Gaza. We are starving the children of Gaza, because if we don't do something about it, we are complicit in what is happening before our very eyes. We are complicit. We are causing this. You, us, and everyone who does nothing about it. It's horrific. And the children of Gaza should not have to pay the price, as all children have done in the past, for the sins of anyone around them. This just has to stop. Any right-thinking human being will stand up and say this just must stop.
And the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Palestine reported that the number of children receiving treatment for malnutrition in Gaza has increased by 80% compared to March due to the ongoing blockade. In a statement on Wednesday, the UN office noted that 92% of infants aged 6 months to 2 years are not receiving the minimum basic nutritional needs alongside their mothers. putting them at serious lifelong health risks. It also reported that 65% of Gaza's population lacks access to clean drinking water. The Islamic resistance movement Hamas said Switzerland's decision to ban the group represents a dangerous bias in favor of the Israeli occupation and a denial of its legal and humanitarian obligations. In a statement released Thursday, the group expressed regret that such a move would come from a country historically known for its neutrality and advocacy of international humanitarian law. Hamas called on the Swiss government to reverse what it described as an unjustified decision and to side with justice.
Switzerland's decision to ban the movement is a dangerous show of bias in favor of the occupation and a blatant disregard for its legal and humanitarian obligations. We regret that such a move would come from a country historically known for its neutrality and its defense of international humanitarian law. The international community and Switzerland in particular have political, humanitarian and moral responsibilities that require urgent action to hold the blatant violations of international law, including the Geneva Conventions, which are being breached daily by Netanyahu's extremist government. We call on the Swiss government to reverse this unjustified and unfair decision, to stand on the side of justice and to support the legitimate struggle of the Palestinian people to end the occupation.
And in other news, French police repressed demonstrations, protests and marches staged in several French cities against the racist campaigns and hate speech promoted by the far-right movement, led by Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau. Security forces and police used excessive violence and tear gas against the demonstrators, arresting dozens of them amid security reinforcements at city entrances in official buildings, fearing an escalation in violence. And according to some French media outlets, the number of demonstrations reached more than 300 nationwide. Massive demonstrations swept through French cities with broad participation from labor unions, student federations, and youth organizations. Protesters voiced strong opposition to the far right's growing grip on the state, denouncing its racist practices. Marwa Belaiwar has the report.
Protests in France are escalating, with demonstrators taking to the streets to oppose racism, pension reform, and the rise of the far right. In cities like Marseille, Bordeaux, Lyon, and Paris, mass marches were met with heavy police crackdowns. Protesters voiced deep concerns over the growing influence of the far right and rising hate speech, compounded by the silence of Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau. Many French politicians accuse him of complicity or even encouragement of Islamophobia and discrimination against minorities.
Islamophobie, le racisme.
Islamophobia, racism, and the invention of nonsense to divide the people. This is what we see, even as we celebrate May Day and recognize that workers share the same demands. Workers deserve to live with dignity on their wages, regardless of their religion, gender, or skin color. We reaffirm our solidarity with the victim of Islamophobia. Yes, I say Islamophobia, and it is worse than hatred. It is a murderous madness. This day is a day to stand against racism and racists throughout the ages we have known.
De toutes les époques l'ont toujours su.
The May Day protests went beyond labor unions' concerns over austerity and pension cuts. They reflected growing anxiety over the far right's advance led by Marine Le Pen and Retailleau, and the apparent inaction from the Élysée Palace as tensions rise. Critics have slammed Retailleau's actions, saying they fall far short of basic diplomatic standards. The recent killing of a young Muslim man of Malian descent inside a French mosque by an extremist further illustrates the deepening problem of Islamophobia. Retailleau's refusal to meet with the victim's family, whom he reportedly considers second-class citizens, sparked outrage. He even used the solidarity vigil to announce a controversial ban on hijab in universities and sports arenas, a move seen by many as fueling further division. While the reasons behind the protests are diverse, one common concern is emerging. The far right's increase in influence is threatening social cohesion, using its racist agenda to shape national policies from behind the scenes.
Calls for the resignation of French Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau are growing in France following the failure to protect a young French Muslim man who was assassinated inside a mosque in southern France. During a session of the French National Assembly, MP Sabrina Sbaihi called on the Interior Minister to resign immediately, stressing that his departure is the only and most appropriate solution for him.
Alors, je n'ai qu'un seul message pour vous.
I have only one message for you. The Republic deserves better than you. The Republic demands better than you. The only way out of these centers, Mr. Retailleau, is your resignation. Go organize your Congress. The French need full-time minister to protect them. Go away.
Allez-vous-en!
To have more insight on the volatile situation now prevailing in France following the assassination of a French Muslim youngster, we contacted Professor Abdenour Toumi, Senior Advisor at the Middle East and Africa Strategic Institute, who said the following.
The ongoing toxic debate in France on migrants, political Islam, and integration, assimilation, insertion, etc., all these societal themes are affecting a great deal France's political spectrum and mainstream media, notably the far-right political parties and media who are cheering for Interior and Religious Affairs Minister Bruno Retailleau that wants to conquer the LR party and be the natural candidate for the LR party in the 2027 France presidential election. France is facing serious challenges: domestic security, public debt, political instability, and the banalization of the far-right rhetoric. For instance, recently, a domestic security issue provoked by knives attacks in high schools and mosques on innocent people, making also the entire Prime Minister François Bayrou government shaky. In fact, the opposition in the left, like LFI, is calling for his resignation in the aftermath of his incoherent position toward Muslims and Arabs.
For Professor Abdenour Toumi, Islamophobia and the anti-Arab and anti-Muslim resentment are behind the current political and social malaise that France is witnessing.
That is himself, banalizing Islamophobia, in which he totally ignored, and he never mentioned the term Islamophobia. So these anti-Arab and Muslim sentiment that is directly linked to the French malaise is inflamed by the far-right mainstream media, political spectrum, and voters. Actually, it's an important element in this equation of race and politics in France is that the nature of racism has moved from its ethnic character to the religious one.
The Urgence Palestine Association has condemned what it described as Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau's bias against organizations expressing solidarity with Palestine. In a statement, the France-based association said the minister's intention to dissolve the group is a direct attack on its stance in support of the Palestinian people's right to self-determination. It also noted that France has intensified its crackdown on organizations and institutions defending the Palestinian cause.
The French state has chosen to double down on its hostility against organizations defending the Palestinian people. This measure comes as an extension of judicial and administrative prosecutions targeting the Solidarity movement through banning solidarity actions and gatherings, as well as imposing harsh criminal convictions. And now, even the political positions of organizations which are entirely legitimate and aligned with established texts protecting public freedoms are being targeted. The state is attacking our stance in support of the Palestinian people's right to self-determination.
Moving on now to Sudan, where rapid support forces shelled the Republican palace in central Khartoum with long-range artillery on Thursday, according to Agence France-Presse, citing a military source. The same source said the shelling originated from the Salha area south of Omdurman and also struck the Ministry of Minerals located in the government district of the capital. Weeks earlier, the Sudanese army had regained control of large parts of Khartoum from the RSF. And 4 Sudanese civilians were killed and others wounded in heavy artillery shelling by RSF targeting residential neighborhoods in Al-Fashar, according to the Army's 6th Infantry Division. The same source stated that the RSF used more than 75 howitzer and mortar shells in the attack, resulting in the deaths of 4 civilians, including children, and injuries to 9 others of varying severity. The Sudanese army announced the killing of 10 RSF fighters in southeastern and northeastern areas of Al-Fashar, according to the 6th Infantry Division. 6 RSF fighters were killed and dozens injured. The army also seized large quantities of military equipment and captured several RSF members who provided intelligence about plans to take over Al-Fashar, according to the army statement. The United Nations reported that at least 542 civilians have been killed in North Darfur state over the past 3 weeks, warning that the actual death toll could be much higher. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk warned of the escalating conflict's devastating effects on the Sudanese people and their safety. He highlighted an RSF attack 3 days ago on the besieged city of Al-Fashar in the Abu Shouk camp, which killed more than 40 civilians. The World Food Programme Sudan Regional Emergency Coordinator Sean Hughes said the organization is in race against time to deliver aid to once inaccessible areas in war-ravaged Sudan before the rainy season. WFP said that it managed to deliver aid for the first time since the start of the war to areas in the capital region of Khartoum that were once inaccessible to aid organizations.
The rainy season is just around the corner, and we're in a race against time to pre-position food in areas that will be cut off when the rains come. During the rains last year, we saw a major surge in hunger and in disease outbreaks. At the moment, we're reaching 4 million people, but we need to scale that up to reach at least 7 million people in the coming months. In order to do that, we need more funding. Otherwise, we'll be cutting support at the very time when we need to be scaling up.
A historic deal with strategic weight, Ukraine and the US signed a minerals agreement that could reshape the war and redefine alliances. Usama Ayadeh's report.
We're going to be signing an agreement, which will be a very big agreement.
A historic step. This is how the minerals agreement concluded between the United States and Ukraine was described.
And other things.
The signing comes amid a tense political landscape through which the Trump administration seeks to link continued American support to specific conditions. The agreement affirms Ukraine's continued control over its resources, but it ties future U.S. support to economic conditions that could reshape war priorities.
Finally, we can state that the agreement that was not signed on the last day of February was finally signed on the last day of April. And the text of this agreement is much better than the absolute majority of previous versions that we have seen.
Indicating the complexities of the situation, the Ukrainian president continues to reject any solutions that force him to concede his country's territorial integrity, emphasizing the importance of continued Western support and preventing Moscow from imposing political facts on the ground. On the other hand, information revealed that the minerals agreement did not accelerate peace negotiations as expected. Rather, it revealed further divergence in visions between Washington and Kyiv at a time when Moscow is betting on the time factor to exhaust the Western powers.
Fortunately, the Ukrainian negotiating team did a fantastic job and actually brought this document to the form of a normal, balanced, commercial agreement from which both parties can receive profits.
Moscow, which experts believe will be deeply disappointed by this rapprochement, especially since the potential presence of American interests in Ukraine would add a different dynamic to the conflict. While the agreement awaits ratification by the Ukrainian parliament, Kyiv insists that any negotiations with Moscow must be preceded by security guarantees. This raises the question of whether the mineral deal will hasten the end of the war or open the door to a new conflict over resources under the ashes of the fire.
And U.S. Treasury Secretary has hailed a historic economic partnership between Washington and Kyiv after a deal granting the U.S. preferential access to Ukraine's mineral resources and supporting its reconstruction. Bessent, in social media posts, credited President Trump for his efforts toward peace and said the U.S. is prepared to move quickly on the agreement. Kyiv called the deal a vital step in restoring ties with the Trump administration and securing continued U.S. support in its defense against Russia.
This partnership, thanks to President Trump's tireless efforts to secure a lasting peace, I am glad to announce the signing of today's historic economic partnership agreement between the United States and Ukraine, establishing the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund. This partnership allows the United States to invest alongside Ukraine to unlock Ukraine's growth assets, mobilize American talent, capital, and governance standards that will improve Ukraine's investment climate and accelerate Ukraine's economic recovery. The Development Finance Corporation will participate and help to establish this fund in collaboration with the government of Ukraine.
The Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha described the minerals deal signed with the United States as a major milestone in the strategic partnership between the two countries. In a post on the X platform, the minister emphasized that the agreement aims to boost Ukraine's economy and serve its national security. Economy Minister Yulia Sviridenko also announced that Kyiv and Washington will jointly manage the investment fund, with neither side holding a decisive vote.
The Development Finance Corporation will participate and help to establish this fund.
And Russian Security Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev said Thursday that the signing of the minerals agreement between Ukraine and the U.S. means that President Donald Trump has finally forced Kyiv to pay the price for American aid. In a post on social media, Medvedev added that Ukraine must now repay the military supplies, with the national wealth of a country disappearing, as he put it. In another news series, official news agency Sana reported that a preliminary agreement has been reached to ceasefire in Jaramana and Ashrafiyat Sahnaya in the Damascus countryside. The report stated that the deal was concluded in the presence of the governors of Damascus countryside, Sweda and Qunaitira, along with local dignitaries and influential social figures. It added that a joint committee will be formed between representatives of Ashrafiyya and the authorities to discuss the aftermath of recent events. The United Nations expressed deep concern over the Israeli attacks on the Syrian capital, Damascus. UN Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, stressed the importance of fully respecting Syria's sovereignty, emphasizing that protecting civilians must be a top priority and requires immediate measures to restore calm and peace in the region. Israeli occupation forces had carried out airstrikes on Wednesday afternoon, targeting the vicinity of Ashrafiyat Sahnaya in rural Damascus. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for tonight's program. Thanks for watching and have a great night.